The Hostway FlexCloud API server allows you to fully manage your cloud computing capacity, as well as all the server instances and computing resources in your account. So what we want to do in this video is show how easy it is to set up a client that can interact with the FlexCloud API server. Inside the API, there's quite a bit of functionality. We're not going to go into all of the different parts of the functionality. We just want to show three simple commands. One is going to be a command to get a list of the servers in our account, and then a second is a command to get a list of images or operating systems we have available to create servers in our account, as well as the flavor or configuration settings that would be used to create those servers in our account. The client that I decided to use is written in Perl. I haven't used Perl in many years, so I wanted to kind of dust off my Perl programming skills, and also just to see how easy it was to set up a client using Perl. So the main packages that we're going to be using are the REST client to send commands and get responses, a JSON library to parse the responses that we get back from the server, and a MIME base64 encoder to encode our authentication information as required by the API server. And this last is the data dumper was simply used for debugging purposes, and it's not really required. It's just for convenience. So that's all the packages we need to interact with the server. The next section here is the configuration settings, which consist of the hostname, username, and password. Then we build the headers from that information. The headers are reused throughout to set up the request to the server. So the hostname, HTTPS. So you want to use the secure server. We don't want to send authentication information over non-SSL. The hostname itself, cprest-vip.hostway.com. So the username that we assign and the password are the same username and password you use when you access site control to manage your account, and you get this information when you sign up your cloud hosting account with Hostway. So it's the same information. Difference is that we prepend the username to the namespace at sitecontrol_hostway_US enterprise. That tells the server what system to access when managing your account. And then in our header information, what we'll do is we'll tell the server that we're accepting application JSON. The alternative is to accept application XML, but we want to tell it that we want JSON responses. And then our authorization information, what we'll do there is we'll encode it using the MIME base64 encoder, and we're setting the username : password when we send the authentication information to the server. So that's all we need in terms of the packages and the configuration. Now we're pretty much ready to interact with the server itself, and to do so we've created this send command function, and this is really the meat of the client itself. This is where we actually do the sending of the command and getting of the response. So this send command function takes two parameters. One is the required command itself, which command we're sending, and that you can see in the actual FlexCloud server. The command, for example, for getting a list of servers is this string here. So that's the actual command that we're sending, and an optional body in JSON request format. We won't be using this in this demo. So we create our new REST client from scratch and tell it what host name to send commands to from our configuration above. And then the first thing we're going to do is we'll send our command as a GET request. As I mentioned, we're not sending any body, so we're not actually sending any post messages. We're sending everything as a GET in this demo. So we're telling the client send a GET command, and we set the headers, and that corresponds actually very closely with what the API is requesting in the server list, for example. So we're sending a GET and servers. Now the servers command itself takes some optional parameters that we're not going to use in this case. We're just basically sending a raw servers command to get the list of the servers in our account in this case. So once we've called this method, the client actually has already sent the get command to the server and has received the response. So first thing we do is we tell the client, let's look at the response code, and we check to make sure that we have an HTTP 200 or 202 response code. If not, we're going to return an error to the caller. And we'll assume then that we got the proper response, and we ask the client then to give us the response content. And what the response content is the actual JSON result that's shown in the documentation here. So this is what we're getting back when we call our response content. So we're going to take that and parse it using the from JSON function from the JSON package that we imported. And this basically returns, in this case, a Perl data structure. Other programming languages return actual objects that you can call methods on. In this case, it's a Perl data structure. So we just basically return that as a response. So the commands that we're going to implement are the servers, images, and flavors, as previously mentioned. So we're going to send commands, and what we'll do is we'll set it up here to be able to run our client from the command line itself. So we'll be able to pass in 3 commands: servers, images, and flavors again. So those are the 3 commands that we set up. So the first thing we'll do is we'll show and call from the command line a command to, or a call to get the servers in our account. So that's the server list. And what we'll do before we actually call it is kind of get an idea of what we're doing here in terms of Perl. So what we're doing is we're parsing over or iterating over the JSON object here. What we see is we get, or we expect back, an array of servers. Each of these servers has an ID as well as some some links information. And what we'll do from our command line demo is we'll print out the ID of each server as well as the href value that's distinct to each server. And in the code you can see that happening, where in our response we have this array of servers, and we iterate over each server to print out the ID and the server's links href. So you'll see an ID and a URI for each. So we'll go down to the command line then, and we will call Perl client.pl and servers. So now we're telling the API server to get servers, and here's our server list. So we have a number of servers that's already in our account, and each one has then its ID and its URI or its href value. And that's as easy as it is. And then finally what we'll show is the ability, or the calls to get the list of the images or the operating systems that we can use to create servers. So here's a list of 89 operating systems we can use. In our case, you're not going to normally see this many server images available. These are a lot of test images that we have under our special account here. But normally what you will see, are a lot of these the Windows servers that you can create, or Red Hat operating systems. So these are the ones that are available to create servers. And as well, then we have the list of the flavors or the configuration settings. Currently there's 3 configuration settings referenced by ID 1, 2, 3. Each server has a gigabyte of RAM. It has 60 gigabytes of disk space, and they vary then based on the number of CPUs, so single CPU, dual CPU, and quad CPU. And that's all there is to it. It's a simple client to start interacting with your FlexCloud account.